Good morning, Shred Nation, and welcome to Inside the Surfer's Studio. Last week, Lost and Nate Yeomans yelled a collective surprise bitches to the surfboard buying world with a Jacob Vanderwork joint showing that the Domesticated series is not just for 80s burnouts trying to recapture lost athleticism. This video was featured on Stab and Surfing Magazine's websites, and interest in the RV immediately went up worldwide among the air reverse generation, as San Clemente's own proved once again he's the dude to make your boards look good in unfun waves. Welcome to Shred Show, I'm Chris, and this is the internet's most stoked surfboard show. Today we talk about a board with a lot of branches on its family tree. The RV began a few years ago as a tuned up mini Simmons called the Plank, which evolved into an Uber Plank, a plank with a bit more rip to it, before inspiring the popular Bottom Feeder, a favorite among Mason Ho and others. That board's rocker and bottom contours helped inspire the Domesticated series Lazy Boy and Couch Potato, both very friendly boards that pack as much performance as possible into high volume, and both of which eventually made way for the RV. All these boards came from the mind of Matt Biolos, who may be the only shaper on Earth to influence board sales the same way his team riders do, likely because of how fun he makes his boards look on any given Tuesday at Trestles. So the question is, should you sell your car to make space for all 6 of these boards in your garage, or does each new shape render the last one obsolete, and are you safe just mowing your neighbor's lawns for a few weeks until you've saved up money to get just one? Dimensions on this RV are 5'9" by 21.50 by 2.50 with 35.47 liters of volume. So if you compare boards across equal length at 5'9" each, this one is about 3/4 of an inch narrower than a Couch Potato, and it's also about 1/4 of an inch wider than a Lazy Boy. It's also just barely thinner than both of those boards by about 1/16 of an inch. Now, since we're talking about dimensions and measurements, it's really interesting to note that when you look at the stringer on your board, it almost always tells you the width of your board at center, but it rarely ever tells you the other 2 most important dimensions when it comes to the width of your surfboard. That's the width of your board measured at 12 inches in from the nose, and also the width of your board measured at 12 inches in from the tail. For example, the width measured right here is a really important point because together with the width at the center of your board and the tip of your nose, it's what gives you your outline curve in the first half of your board. We can learn more about this using a measuring rectangle. These are really basic. You can find them at most surf shops worth the salt water that they profit off of, and they basically just measure 12 inches down the center from here all the way to here, and it also measures 12 inches from center going to your left and from center going to your right. The magic of these things is not the really cool sounds that they make when you wave it around, but in fact how you can line up this center ruler right here with your stringer and then line up the 0-inch mark right at the nose to get your 12-inch mark right here. Once you're there, you can follow this ruler right here out to one of the rails. In this case, we get 8 and about 1/16 as a measured distance from the stringer out to this rail. If you're following along in decimals, that's 8.0625 from the center right here all the way out to this rail. And since that's only half of the board as measured this way, we multiply it by 2 and get a total measurement of 16.125 inches wide at the 12-inch mark on the nose. Okay, so why is this useful in the first place? It's useful because if you currently feel like the board you're surfing is too wide in the nose and kind of gets in the way with swing weight or digging a rail when you push it in turns, you can measure it and then go narrower in the nose with your next board. Or if you feel like your current board has this really pointy nose right here that doesn't give you enough float and planing power, in your next board you can go with a wider nose. Since this board obviously has a more pointy nose than a Lazy Boy or a Couch Potato, that's our first hint that this one is more centered around performance with less emphasis of planing up in the nose and more emphasis on helping you whip it around really quickly in turns. Back here in the tail, the 12-inch mark lines up perfectly right here with the first set of 2 sets of wings in this board. They match roughly with the trailing edges of the first set of fin boxes and with the trailing edges of the quad boxes. And that wing placement makes it easier to control the speed that comes with such a wide board up at center than it would be if this board stayed wide throughout the tail into a wide rounded thumbtail like this. The wings also help create tighter angles in your turns without sliding out, like what would happen if this board kept all its width back through here and then had a really wide squashed off tail like this. This tail design also has everything to do with the type of fins that you would surf in this board, which across the Domesticated series has been one of the most widely discussed fin situations of the last 2 years. These boards are designed with quad sets in mind, like these controller fins by Futures or the similar Seaworthy set by Futures and Lost. Those 2 different fin sets are commonly looked at as keel fins split apart into 2 fins. fins as a way to keep the drive of a keel fin without the drag associated with forcing water to travel across such a long fin. A lot of people really like this style of quad, like the controllers or the Seaworthy set in these domesticated boards, but others prefer a different type of big fin in the leading two boxes, like Kinetic X2s or Merrick AMTs. Using these types of fins that are commonly called twinsers, it's still popular to use the controller rears in the quad boxes, or even more standard quad trailers like those found in the Simon Anderson 5-fin set or even the AM2 5-fin set. Thanks to Jacob's edit, we can see Nate surfing his RV with what at first seems to be a pretty standard thruster setup, using a black stick in the thruster box for lively spring out of turns and the MB3 in the front boxes. But despite surfing a thruster instead of a quad, he may be going for something similar to everyone else who surfs this board, because when you look at photos of Nate surfing on standard shortboards, he's usually on what appears to be a set of blue Futures F4s, which are a full 2 sizes smaller than the MB3s he's surfing in his RV. The point is, you'll probably like surfing this board with bigger fins than what you would surf in a standard shortboard, and if you're surfing this board with a Finatic membership, you can log in and select every fin we just talked about, and they'll come in the mail one by one as you surf each set for as long as you want before sending it back and receiving another set from Finatic in the mail. Slightest single concave in the world. Barely there, double concave. Double concave becomes really noticeable just where it meets the first two fins as it moves through it, becoming a V with slight concave on either side. You may really feel the difference in how this surfs having concave on either side of the V, because while a V would want to sit down in the water and drive through turns, possibly drawing them out slightly, this slight concave running on either side of the V introduces an element of lift, which helps you have a bit more slide in the tail and a bit more pivot up towards the lip from the trough. It also may help the board free up a little bit up in the lip. If you want to compare all these domesticated boards against each other, I think they actually break down pretty simply. I think the Lazy Boy is probably the best option in waves that are head high or up because of how narrow it is. At least it's more narrow than the other boards in the domesticated series, helping you control it better when the waves get good. The Couch Potato is by far the best option on the low end of the wave spectrum if you want something super easy to surf in absolute junk, because it's the one that's the widest and has the most volume. The RV falls right in the middle, and to me this board is kind of like the domesticated version of your daily driver because of how it's probably really fun in everything from thigh to head high waves. I think it's probably most fun for average to advanced surfers who want something for small wave shredding, and I think it's probably most fun if you can get it at about the same volume as your standard shortboard. It's also one of those cases where I think you would err on the side of going accidentally too short as opposed to going accidentally too long. I think the shorter you can get in one of these, the better off you're going to be and the more fun you'll have surfing it. Shred Nation, if you are surfing any of the boards in the Lost Domesticated series, tell us what boards you're surfing and what you think in the YouTube comments below. We hope the waves are up near whatever ocean you live next to, or we hope that your friend has a really fun half pipe in his backyard, and we will see you soon on Shred Show.